Hello and welcome to Mid-Table Crisis with me, Simon Cross.
And me, Tom Patrick.
This week we'll be covering the closure of the January transfer window, the crazy happenings at Leeds United, the breaking news, I guess, of Michael Laudrup's sacking, which happened literally an hour before we went to record, so nice one, Swansea, thanks for that. Resignation of Joe Kinnear. We will cover the big title clash between Man City Chelsea. And, Tom, I believe you've got a few little tidbits to cover.
Yep, I know the Coventry fans always are interested in my views on what's happening recently, so I'll give them a bit of that. And anyone who pays attention to the Football Ramble like I do, or indeed the popular press, who are very interested in the story, Keys and Gray have landed themselves in hot water again, so we'll have a quick look at that as well.
And of course we will finish with the long-awaited return of Book of the Month.
Book of the Month. Everyone's favourite day of the month. Including mine, despite the fact that it's my dad's birthday. Anyway, so this transfer window, it's been a bit quiet. You know, it's a January transfer window, so I think we expected a few more crazy panic buys from clubs sliding towards the trapdoor than we really got. I mean, what do you think, Simon?
Well, deadline day itself, I agree with you, was a bit of a damp squib. I mean, we had the signing of, I believe and I'm trying to get the pronunciation right here because I've seen pundits struggle over this, Kim Källström from Spartak Moscow on loan to Arsenal.
I don't think anyone's going to mind too much if you call him Källström. He's Källström, you know.
But the Swedish midfielder.
Yeah. I've heard him described as the Swedish Ryan Giggs. He can play as a winger, he can play as more of a wide midfielder, or he can play in the middle as an attacking midfielder. Yeah,
and Arsenal fans would be looking forward to seeing Källström in action, except for the fact he's currently laid up with a back injury, which they knew about.
Yeah, but I think it was a free, and I don't think they're necessarily going to lose out on much. You know, the wages they're going to be paying him aren't huge, and Arsenal, to be fair, can afford it. It's not like they've shelled out a load of money on him. So even if he does only play, you know, a bit part, it's not the end of the world. You know, maybe, I think the point is that Arsenal didn't really get anyone in of note anyway, and the biggest player they got in was injured. Nobody would have even cared about Källström if they'd have got in another striker.
Or the Draxler deal had happened.
Yeah, or a bombastic defensive midfielder, or, you know, a big centre-back, you know. The fact is that it's been a bit quiet down Arsenal way, so...
Do you think Arsene Wenger is quite aware of the hyperinflation on players' values that can happen in a January transfer window? He's waiting for the summer months.
He's a very astute manager, Arsene. I think he knows all the rules, but I think he's got to be careful not to be too prudent. Maybe not prudent, but cautious. Too cautious. Because they had a genuine chance at the title, and of course they still do. But
well, they're currently leading the table. I must put out.
Yeah, I know, but I think they'd have much better odds to win the title if they'd got another 2 or 3 players in. Because at the moment they're lacking depth.
They have depth in midfield, but not really anywhere else on the pitch.
That's the problem. And even then, you know, the midfield's looking a little bit thin at the moment due to some injuries and suspensions. You know, when Flamini, Ramsey, I think Wilshere's nearly back to full fitness. But, you know,
Wilshere will be back in the next couple of weeks, I believe.
Yeah. I think he may even be available for the weekend. But, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. But, yeah, I mean, midfield, they'd be okay. But, you know, Walcott's out. In defence, they look like, you know, if one of their back four gets a nasty injury, then I think they'll really struggle. It just doesn't fill me with confidence. Don't get me wrong, I want Arsenal to do well, but I think they're going to have to be lucky and get through the season with no injuries in order to win something this time.
I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I too, from a neutral point of view, I just want it to be Arsenal that wins the league. However, yeah, I think you're right. I think the depth may catch up to them, especially when you're competing on free fronts still. They're still in the FA Cup. They've got a big tie against Liverpool soon.
Yeah.
they've got Bayern Munich to look forward to in the Champions League, and of course the remaining 14 league games. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of time for things to go wrong.
Have you seen the February fixture lists? Liverpool twice and Bayern Munich.
Twice, yeah.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, I think one of the legs is in March, but the point remains is they're playing Bayern Munich twice within the space of a month, so that's never a good fixture list to get.
And they've got Liverpool twice, who could knock them out of the FA Cup and put the kibosh on their Premier League hopes.
Speaking of Liverpool, their attempts on deadline day to sign Eugene Yokilempa. I'm sure fans across the globe will be laughing at my very risible attempt at a Ukrainian pronunciation.
Yeah, the Ukrainian lad, Konyalenko. The Ukrainian lad, who impressed us very much at the 2012 Euros.
And of course, any big player of FM will know that he's termed as a beast within 2 or 3 seasons on the game, and often ends up at a Big Four club.
Yeah, people often talking about him being the next Oleg Blokhin or Andrei Polunin or Yevgeny Pokobayev.
Oh, now you're just showing off.
Ukrainian wingers. Some of my
strong suits, it seems.
Yeah, I think he'll become a very good player, and apparently Dnipro, his club, are fairly sure that the deal will happen in the summer now. I think Dnipro blamed Liverpool, and Liverpool blamed Dnipro. Why it actually didn't go through, I'm not 100% sure. But as I
reckon
found
that'll be a summer saga one of those deals that seems to drag through the entirety of the window?
I think Liverpool want to get it done as quickly as possible because of this. If there's one thing that I've learned today, it's that calling the Ukraine is never as simple as it seems.
Of course, Tom's attempts to buy depleted uranium are not currently going as well as I'd expect.
Actually, I was calling up a tour company in Ukraine that does tours of Chernobyl.
So I was close. The radiation joke paid off.
Yeah, that's the last time that's ever going to happen, isn't it, Simon?
All right.
He's been making radiation jokes since 1998. You should see the smile on his face.
Thing is, I was 7 at the time, so not many other kids got it.
Yeah.
But then again, what else would you expect from me? And speaking of weird, we go to what I would term one of the weirdest transfer deals of the entire window, and that is the moving of Abdel Taarabt from Queen's Park Rangers to the mighty AC Milan.
I'd say it's
personally not my favourite Milan, but one of the best two.
I suppose so. I mean, the only one that could I was going to say Grant Holt's move to Aston Villa was odd, but not
in the same league as this.
No, literally
not in the same league.
It's Serie A.
I mean, when I discussed this with a friend, I forget the specific friend, he points out, I think it was actually our noted contributory, Mr. James Eisen, who of course I reference quite a lot on this podcast, as you've all come to know. He compared the Kevin Prince Boateng deal from Portsmouth to the Abdel Taarabt deal.
Yeah, it's similar. The problem is though, AC Milan, they're not having a very good season, are they?
Well, they've just recently changed their manager to the legendary Clarence Seedorf.
Oh, what a man!
And they're crawling back up the table. I think they're languishing in about 8th or 9th, which, if you are AC Milan, is an actual mid-table crisis.
Yeah, they were in 13th, and I know some of the fans waited outside the stadium for the players in order to give them what for. And fortunately, a couple of Milan stalwarts went out there and spoke to them, because I think certain players were going to get slapped around a little bit, certain Balotellis and those kinds of players who, maybe hadn't been there that long, and people were questioning their commitments, because apparently they were more seen in the nightclubs of Milan than they were on the training pitches. But I mean, my one thing about the Taarabt deal, what they need at the moment is, they probably need some bodies in, freshen up a little bit. The last thing they need is a luxury player, a player who can turn a game on its head when he wants to, but half the time doesn't even look bothered. They've already got 5 of them. Why do they need someone who, is questionable whether he's Premiership quality?
It is questionable where his Premiership. I mean, he never really defined himself in the Premier League at all. But I guess Seedorf sees something in him. It could be a revelation. It could be a massive flop. We just don't know.
I personally don't think he's going to have a massive impact there. Hopefully Seedorf knows what he's doing, unlike his old compatriot Edgar Davids, who
has recently left Barnet. The dream is over for all you Barnet fans.
Yeah, and he's quit football because he said people were targeting his team. Referees were targeting his team. When you elbow someone in the face and leave their mouth as just like red dripping flaps of skin, then you've got to expect a few cards here and there.
It does happen, I mean,
only to you and Edgar Davids.
I was never really carded in my career. I've taken this opportunity to update the mid-table crisis community on Milan's position. They currently are in 10th place.
Yeah.
30 points off first.
Which for Milan is anathema. So
that is, yeah, Milan fans just won't tolerate that.
It makes me smile a little bit because it reminds me of the Manchester United situation. They can't seem to understand that they're not in the top four for some reason, and they throw a hissy fit. I mean, to be fair, not all Milan have been, not all Man United fans have been that way. But,
no, you do hear someone like radio phone-ins just lambaste David Moyes within the first half of his first season.
Yeah,
it's like they've forgotten what happened with Ferguson. It took him some time. It takes time.
Mark Robins saved him.
Of course, Mark Robins, a Coventry City legend.
Fuck off.
I think I may have touched a nerve there, so we'll move on. We won't move too far. We'll stay with Manchester United, and of course their marquee signing, Juan Mata.
I'd say biggest signing of the transfer window by some distance.
In terms of money, it was the biggest transfer signing of the window in Britain.
And importance as well, because, two of the biggest clubs in the country, it could tip the power in Man United's favour and get them revving back up the leagues, because I don't expect them to finish in the top three, but it's the kind of player they needed, and now Van Persie and Rooney are back as well. You can see them being a real force again.
It's one of the players they needed. I still think they need another central midfielder, and maybe to start looking at getting in a centre-back. Because Rio Ferdinand, he's not the player he was, and you do need to start making plans to replace him.
Vidic is as well, isn't
he? Yeah, Vidic is aging too, of course.
And Evra.
So, they need to make a fair few more signings, I think, personally.
They could probably do with 3 or 4 new players in the summer.
I think the summer will be the big window for Moyes. I mean,
yeah.
People say when he came in he should have had some targets, but you forget that the chief exec had just changed as well. So, of course, there was going to be difficulty signing players.
Yeah.
And next window is where he'll really prove his worth, I think.
Yeah, and he's proven that he can sign big players, because Mata, I know he wasn't liked at Chelsea, but he's
not like Mourinho at Chelsea. He was liked by the fans. He was their player of the season the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, scored a lot of goals as well as his assists. I liked him. Yeah, I think it's a good move for him, because he can really show what he's worth.
And he gets to make a push for a World Cup place. Now he's getting games again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle to get into that midfield, isn't it?
At the best of times, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah.
That's all the major deals done, with one notable exception. Well, 2 notable exceptions. I know Tom will speak a little more later about the whole Coventry situation, but of course Leon Clark, the man famed for playing at 14 clubs in his 28 years on this planet, moved from Coventry to Wolves. And so, Tom, any thoughts?
Well, I wasn't surprised when he said he wanted to leave. He's a bit of a journeyman anyway, obviously. But it could have gone a lot worse for us. I know a lot of Cov fans were annoyed, but personally I see it a little bit like the King deal. He's been around a bit. He's not really settled in anywhere. He's got talent. We took a chance on him like we did with King. He scored us a lot of goals, and he left. With King, he promised that he'd come back and sign a contract, and he didn't. We let him go for free. With Clark, we got more goals out of him, and we got some money as well. So it's not the end of the world. I mean, the only problem is Coventry are a squad desperately lacking depth. So we could have done with getting another striker in permanently, also because Wilson has been injured as well. But to be honest, it's not the end of the world.
I do like your pragmatic view of Coventry City these days, Tom. You seem to have resigned yourself to the fact that you're no longer a Premier League force, and it's a long, slow rebuilding process from here.
Yeah, I look forward to the day when you get to that stage as well.
I really wish you wouldn't joke about that. Not when we're making superstar signings like Yannick Bastos. You'll soon be eating your words, mate. Capped 4 times by the mighty footballing giants Luxembourg.
You can say the player's name, but you can't say superstar signings.
I know, it's a bit of a weird one. However, superstar
Don't try.
Superstar signing Yannick Bastos will it's been signed on only an 18-month deal, which is a little bit heartbreaking. I thought we'd have tied, a big footballing name down for a little bit longer. But it's just a damning indictment of Bolton Wanderers that we went from signing superstar players like, of course, Nicholas Anelka, Ivan Campo. We had JJ Okocha, for God's sakes.
Djorkaeff?
Piero.
I think he's the oldest player to make his Premier League debut.
Yeah. I think we had Al Hadj Diouf back when he was good, of course.
Yeah.
So we were signing big names. A little over the hill sometimes, these big names, but big names.
Yeah.
And
Ivan Campo was the hill. Go on.
We're scouring leagues to find little known players like Yannick Bastos, and we loan out most of our strikers and sell David Ngo after his respectable return considering what we've been paying him of 16 goals in 91 games. Thanks, David. It just seems it shows how far we've fallen as a team, and you're right. And we're only 3 points off the relegation zone at the moment in the Championship, so we may yet have further to fall. Touch wood, we won't go down, but wow, I'm starting to worry about it.
I think you'll be fine, in all honesty. You're not having a great period at the moment, but I think that Bolton squad at the moment is too good to go down to League One. I mean, in a couple of years' time, I don't know, it depends on the signings and the finances, but we'll see. I think you'll be alright.
The term too good to go down doesn't fill me with confidence after the whole Newcastle thing, though, so...
I look forward to seeing Coventry play Bolton in Coventry in the Championship in a couple of years' time.
I like your drive and you like your ambition. And that's quite beautiful. And maybe we'll see a bit more drive and ambition in the summer transfer window. But we can't fault the drive and ambition of one Massimo Cellino, who mid-table crisis fans will be known is heavily embroiled in the crisis is I'd say chaos, in the chaos that's unfolding before our very eyes at Leeds United.
Yeah, it's all gone a bit mental. Brian McDermott was sacked, and now he's been reinstated.
He was sacked by a man that technically wasn't in charge.
Yeah, I think basically what happened was the owners, was it GHF?
GHF, I believe, are the parent company.
They'd agreed to sell 75% of the club to the Italian, and he said that he wanted to bring in his own man, and then there was a few difficulties, so it couldn't go through straight away, so they've had to reinstate it.
Yeah, we've got it slightly wrong. It's GFH Capital, the owners of Leeds. But the point still stands. They want to sell the 75% share in the club to a man who, as Calgary manager, I'm sorry if I've got that wrong as well, as Calgary owner, has had 35 managers in his 21 years owning the club.
Yeah.
Which I've worked out is roughly a new manager every 7 or 8 months.
Mm-hmm. I doubt some of them lasted that long, to be honest.
No, I think he's had 3 in a month before.
You're the same with prostitutes. I just want to bring to your attention as well, Leeds City Councillor leader Keith Wakefield. You could not get a more Leeds name than Keith Wakefield.
That is beautiful. Of course, our esteemed former guest Dave will be rejoicing at the fact that a man called Keith Wakefield is in charge of his beloved hometown.
The fact that he exists. Wow. But he's written to the Football League to voice his dismay at the series of events, which he's described as bizarre and a debacle. That's Keith Wakefield, that is, not Dave. Dave can't write. He lost his hands in a sewing accident.
But the thing is with Massimo Cellino, he has 2 criminal convictions.
Yeah.
Now, call me crazy, but a man who's got convictions for false accounting and deceiving the European Union is not exactly what you would call a fit and proper person to own a football club. And
you say that, Simon, but what you're missing out is he's Italian. And I don't know if you're familiar with Silvio Berlusconi, who was not only president of the country, but president of the biggest club in Italy. And
Whoa. One of the biggest clubs in Italy.
One of the biggest clubs in Italy, but for a lot of the 90s, they were the biggest club in Italy, and Italian football was at its zenith. 1994, AC Milan 4, Barcelona 0. Berlusconi was in charge of he was the owner of the club then, and we're talking about a man who passed a law that said people over the age of 73 can't go to jail. At the time, he was 73 and on trial for various crimes.
I get your point. The Italian model, perhaps, is a bit different to the Italian definition of fit and proper person, perhaps, is somewhat different.
Yeah, and I would also like to say as well that fit and proper person, bear in mind, Thaskin Shinawatra passed that test.
And I don't know if mid-table crisis fans are aware of the situation in Thailand, but that is a damning indictment of our system.
Yeah, very much so. And just look at Portsmouth, just look at Coventry City, just look at Leeds. In the past, what's happened at Leeds. You don't need to be a genius to work out that fit and proper person just means whoever's rich enough to throw the money around.
True. All I hope is that this situation is so shocking that we do get genuine change in what makes a fit and proper person, and genuine enforcement, because that's what's missing at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing to make up a rule, it's another one to enforce it.
I mean, McDermott, to his credit, has gone back to Leeds, saying that he couldn't let down the 31,000 fans that gave him support at the weekend.
Yeah.
But he turned up at training today, and he had a player he hadn't signed there.
An Italian player had just turned up. Obviously, there's some sort of machinations going on behind closed doors. I wouldn't be surprised if the Italian, is it Cellini?
Cellino.
Cellino. I wouldn't be surprised if Cellino brings in a raft of Italian signings, a bit like what we've seen over at Watford, with their owners who also own Udinese. How many
and Granada. Udinese and Granada.
But how many Italians were there in last season? 11, 12 loans?
I remember fans of other clubs were quite livid at the fact that Watford could just seem to have a new squad turn up.
Yeah, they used a few loopholes. I mean, it doesn't always work. I remember David Platt, after his sojourn in Bari and Sampdoria, he became manager of Nottingham Forest, and he got 3 Italians in. And I remember someone describing them as the worst players they'd ever seen. It doesn't always work. You can't just get a player from a different country and hope and think that it's just going to work itself out, because there's a lot of problems. People need to acclimatise to the English game. They need to acclimatise to the English countryside. There's a lot of acclimatisation going on there.
Of course, it's a case of the food, the people. It takes time to gel as a unit.
Yeah.
But all I can say, if we take a moment of sincerity here, is that I say to Leeds fans, we just hope the best for your club and hope that you're out of this crazy situation soon.
The crazy situation that started when the takeover talks happened, or the crazy situation that started when they got relegated after being in UEFA Champions League. Was it quarter-finalists?
Semi-finalists, I believe.
From that all the way down to League One.
I was referring to the immediate situation, but I think a club of Leeds size, if managed correctly, should find themselves able to return to the top flight soon enough. But it will take time.
Younger listeners might not be aware, but Leeds for decades were one of the top sides in the country. They won the first division just before it became the Premier League. They were always up and about near the top, challenging. In the 70s, one of the best teams in Europe. And, even in the 60s, in the 50s, a top quality team. That's one thing, I think we should always point that out, because as younger people start getting into football, they might just believe that Man City have always been a top team, that Chelsea have always been a top team. I mean, Man United and Arsenal have traditionally been very good teams, but, there's some big teams that have fallen by the wayside as well.
You're right. It's important to look at the history of football as a whole and, reinforce the message that, giants can fall and giants can rise.
Yeah, Hull City were a third division team for a lot of their existence. Swansea.
It's funny you mentioned Swansea because, of course, after their meteoric rise from the edge of the footballing league abyss,
Yeah.
To which they would have fallen into non-league football. They've now climbed to the lofty heights of the Premier League, and they've made a good
Decent fist of it.
a decent go of it, I'd say.
Well, they've won the League Cup as well. They've had very good success considering they weren't even in the league not too long ago, in football terms.
But the man who won them the League Cup just last season, Michael Laudrup, has tonight been sacked as manager. I mean, the club currently lies 2 points off the relegation places in the Premier League, and they've lost 6 in the last 8. But do you think this seems unexpected to me? I mean, I didn't see this coming.
I didn't really see this coming, but I was just thinking about that actually. I would say that in the days of the third division for Swansea, I bet Laudrup was either playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid, which is quite imagine if the players at that time had known
that one day Michael Laudrup would be in charge.
One of the greatest players of the 90s. And another thing...
The greatest Danish player ever.
The greatest Dane were you going for then?
The greatest Dane. I was going to go for that, yes.
It's a fairly disputed title, I'm sure. There's quite a few great ones I can think of, but he's definitely, one of the best players Denmark has ever produced. One of the best players Scandinavia has ever produced, I would say. I think that probably helped him to get the job in the first place. As to whether he should have been sacked?
Well, as I've previously mentioned, Swansea are 2 points off the relegation zone, but they're lying in 12th.
Yeah, it's very tight down there.
There is a 6 point gap between Fulham in 20th and Stoke in 11th. This is true.
I just think, honestly, that they should have waited a little bit longer.
Yes.
It could all go very wrong.
They're having a bad spell. But to sack him now, they've got, Gary Monk's took temporary charge, and they've got the Wales derby coming up this weekend.
Big game.
And that is a massive game. And I just don't see who they're going to get in now. I mean, I can't think of a name that would go to Swansea off the top of my head.
Well, the transfer window is shut for a start.
Yeah, I was talking in a managerial capacity. I can't think who would be linked with the job off the top of my head.
Yeah, but whoever would go there, they can't bring any of their own people in. I think the idea would be just stay up. These are the players you've got. Do your best with them. Stay up.
We might see an interim manager take charge to the end of the season.
Yeah, I think depending on how Monk does, if Monk puts a couple of wins together, then I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in charge, because there's not that long of the season left. It's about 13, 14 games. Realistically, as long as they don't go down, Swansea, I don't think they ever expected to be in the top 6 maybe. So I think as long as they don't go down, they won't be too annoyed if they manage to survive this season, wherever they finish.
As you say, they're never going to expect to be a top 6 team. They're currently in 12th. 12th is a position you'd expect Swansea to finish in at the end of the season.
Yep.
So
they've been a bit unlucky this season as well, I'd say.
Well, with injuries, they've had their 2 best strikers out for significant periods of the season.
Yeah.
Which hasn't helped.
Well, it's never going to.
It doesn't help when they're all fit sometimes. Just look at Chelsea.
I remember the other day you saying just how fit Samuel Eto'o was.
Well, I think you and I were using very different definitions of the word.
Yeah, I think so too. And you also used very different definitions of the word buggery. But let's not go into that.
I think it's a bit of a panic that they've sacked him now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't know if they'll come to regret that at the end of the season. They might very well do.
I think so. And I think if they don't regret it at the end of the season, they'll probably regret it in 3 years' time when he's at a bigger club doing great things. Because I honestly believe that's what will happen. Yeah,
he's got the player reputation. He's got the... I liked the way they played the football.
Yeah, he's got a bit of silverware.
He's the complete package in some regards.
He's maybe slightly naive, but he's a young manager, so what do you expect?
He's quite young, yeah. So
people were talking about him for big jobs. People mentioned him before Mourinho took the Chelsea job.
I think that would have been a bit too soon for him. But
me too.
He was linked with the Tottenham job when AVB went by some reporters.
Heavily linked.
I just took the liberty of bringing up Swansea's next 5 fixtures. And they've got Cardiff at the weekend, as we've mentioned. That's a televised game too, so that'll be interesting. That's an evening kickoff, which for a Wales derby is quite brave on the part of the police to let that be a fixture. So they've got Cardiff at home, Stoke away. They then go to Everton for the fifth round of the FA Cup. They then host Napoli, and then they've got Liverpool. So
not easy games by any stretch of the imagination. We saw at the weekend that Stoke can beat anyone on their patch, and we already knew that anyway. So
it was another cold, windy day in Stoke.
Yeah, they specialise in them, and 2 Charlie Adam goals as well.
Top scorer for them this season. That's another that just shows how crazy this season's been. Crazy season where Charlie Adam is Stoke's top goal scorer. We go to a former manager of the crazy gang, Joe Kinnear, who has just left his post as director of football at Newcastle.
A lot of comings and goings today, considering the transfer window. Yeah, it was. I don't know why he was there in the first place. To be honest, I don't think he knew why he was there.
But he couldn't pronounce the players' names.
Johan Kebab.
Well, sold Kebab for 20 million and change to PSG on deadline day. That was a weird deal. I'd have thought Newcastle would have made some sense and had the sense to sell him a couple of days before and try and get a big name in. To sell someone on deadline day is, without a long-term plan, it's a bit risky to say the least, especially when he's your most creative player.
I think if you sell him on deadline day, though, you can usually push for a better deal. You can say, look, I think they wanted about 16, 17 million PSG, and they said, well, we won't do it for anything less than 20, 21. And with time running out, they just said yes. It can happen.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, you're right in the financial aspect, but in terms of the team, you've got under a day to find a replacement.
Yeah.
Unless they plan to sell Kabay the entire time, and I don't think they did.
I have it on good authority that Ashley holds the purse strings, of course. He's quite a shrewd negotiator, but he's also not afraid to take risks. He's a bit of a risk taker when it comes to the transfer market, especially when it comes to stuff like deadline day.
Look, I mean, Joe Kinnear came in with the promise he's going to get big names in. He got Loic Remy in, true, but that wasn't a permanent deal.
On a loan, yeah. And
I mean, the two deals he has made aren't permanent deals. He didn't permanently sign a player. A man that came in thinking, I've got the best names in the world right in my phone. Nothing came out of him, apart from a man that's a little bit, who's been spurned by his team in the Bundesliga, Borussia Gladbach. Now this is one I definitely can't say. So, but yeah, a man that wasn't cutting it in the Bundesliga, Luke de Jong, and admittedly a fine piece of business in getting Loic Remy. But you have to feel that Newcastle's just a stopgap for him before he goes to a bigger team.
I honestly thought you were going to say a fine piece of ass. Yeah, like you said, you were talking about big names, and those aren't particularly big names anyway. Even though they were decent loan deals. Yeah, I think Remy proved by, instead of going to Newcastle the season before, he went to QPR just for the money. I think he's proved that he's a bit of a mercenary anyway, and that, he's the kind of player you do want in on loan because, you don't have the hassle of sorting out his contract and stuff, which QPR do. He's a bit of a Tarap. He's a good player to have in on loan if you're not struggling to climb up the places, because he has got a bit of baggage with him. If you're the parent club, and then he's the kind of player that you don't really want to be paying loads of wages for a player who doesn't seem to want to be there that much. I mean, Remy didn't seem too bothered about QPR, to be honest. So Joe Kinnear's gone, and everyone can celebrate, but not everyone in the world will be celebrating tonight, because Manchester City have lost their, I'd say, fairly substantial home record against Chelsea, of all people, to a Branislav Ivanovic goal. I mean, who saw that one coming?
Not me. I took him out of my fantasy team a couple of weeks ago.
I refuse to have any Chelsea players in there, but I'd probably say he's one of my favourite Chelsea players at the moment, just because he scores a lot of goals and he seems like a decent guy, which you can't see.
He's an industrious player. I mean, he's one of a great set of Serbian centre-backs we've seen over the last 5 years. Of course, Nemanja Vidic, Neven Subotic.
I was going to say Subotic.
You say Subotic.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Oh, God. we speak of Serbians, of course. Another Serbian was making his league debut, I believe. Nemanja Matic.
Yeah. I don't understand why they sold him in the first place, to be honest.
Well, he was a make-weight in the David Luiz deal, and I think they wanted Luiz more.
Yeah. He looks like he's turning into a decent player. Premiership
Yeah,
standards. I'd say he's Premiership standard already.
I think the big thing with the Matic deal is now it gives David Luiz, when he plays as a sitting midfielder, more freedom, because Matic will sit and hold the line. And now you've got a more expressive but still defensively minded midfielder in Luiz. And I personally believe that David Luiz is, at heart, a central defensive midfielder. He's a very competent centre back, but you just prefer to have him in the middle of the park.
I think the point is he's a Brazilian centre back, which is basically a bit like, Brazilian centre back is like an English centre forward. They're attacking, they look to score a lot of goals, they don't really care about defending. That's about the same thing.
Well, it's knowing when to do it. Of course, Lucio was famed for his mazy runs, but he always knew when to time him. He never let himself get caught out.
Yeah, he scored some lovely goals as well, I remember. But yeah, I think Luiz, probably more often it pays off than he messes it up. But all in all, yeah, I think it's a good idea that there's someone sitting next to him that'll facilitate his runs forward.
It's proof. I mean, a lot of people said that Mourinho was just going to have his players sit and park the bus, but he didn't. He went out. He had a bit of counter-attacking abandon, and with players like Matic and Ramirez, who did really well neutralising Pablo Zabaleta bombing down the wings. He stopped. He cut that threat right out, and
Hazard had a good game as well.
Yeah, Hazard did have a good game. I've heard a lot of people say that he's a future Ballon d'Or winner of his current form, which is a bold statement, a very bold statement. But I reckon he could certainly make the top three of the Ballon d'Or. Not this year, maybe next year.
It'd be nice to see another Belgian in the Ballon d'Or race.
Of course. Mind you, in 5 years' time, we could be looking at an all Belgian top three if Football Manager's to be believed.
Or if I get my way.
Oh God! It'd just be obscure Serbian Lithuanian players with you if you were the Ballon d'Or voting panel.
That'd be ridiculous. They'd be Slovenian.
Of course.
Rock Kronovatir.
But it blows the title race a bit open now. Chelsea have now drawn level on points with Manchester City, and Arsenal, of course, sitting above them are 2 points ahead. But as we've mentioned, Arsenal's February isn't looking too rosy.
No. I think they need to win the first game to keep the spirits up and then just go head first into it. But I mean, yeah, Man City lost the home record. They managed not to score in a game, which was unusual.
Which is very rare.
Yeah, but I still think I wouldn't be surprised if they win the title. I know you wanted to talk about a 3-horse race, but I can see Man City and Arsenal being up there right at the end. I think it's going to be a tight race, but I think it's going to be those two at the end.
So we're all agreed. We're both agreed it's a 3-horse race at this point. I mean, there's some people still talking that Liverpool have got to host all the big teams at Anfield, and that might play a factor in them getting back involved in the title hunt. Do you think Liverpool pose a genuine title threat?
I would say no, not at the moment. I'd say they've got a team that needs freshening up. I would say
not from an attacking standpoint, but certainly defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put too much blame on Kolo Touré, but I do think he's past his best, and he's made a mistake that's cost him a few points. But I don't think that the rest are up to the standards of a Premiership winning team either. So you can't blame it all on him.
All we can say is, as neutrals, it's going to be a great season to enjoy. So what I'm saying to fans of these three teams is, just chill out, okay? Just don't let the stress get to you, because it's going to be a stressful run-in for all three teams.
And don't kill yourself. And what's another group of people that shouldn't kill themselves are Coventry fans, because we've got another player in. Yes, we have indeed. And yes, he's just come back off a drugs ban. I don't think people should necessarily jump to conclusions, which they might do me having saying that to come back off a drugs ban, but it was some sort of nasal spray I've heard, and I think he was a bit unlucky, to be honest. Well, the winger Mark Marshall, he was a Barnet player, in fact. 84 games, 10 goals. Basically, he's been given a contract until the end of the season. If he impresses, then we may well sign him up for the next year. He's definitely got the ability to play at this level, I'd say. He started his career at Swindon and played a few games for them. So he could be a very useful player for us. Apparently he's got a lot of hunger, which you would do if you've been out of the game for 2 years, because we need hungry players at the moment. We've got some good young players, but they're being stretched quite thin at the moment because we've had to play a lot of games. We've had a few injuries.
The main thing here is that he's a cheap player in terms of wages, I imagine, what with having to make with the 2-year ban he's had.
Yeah.
And he's got a point to prove. He's got a past to move on from, and that's the kind of hunger you need. Certainly, he's got the hunger to hopefully the hunger and drive to succeed and drive you further up the table.
I'd hope so, yeah. And he's not the only player we've managed to get in. Elvis has managed to get a nice couple of loan signings in as well. Although Ross Donnelly from Swansea, it was a striker. He's already left. We got him on a loan till the end of the season. He's went back to Swansea for personal reasons, which was a bit of a blow. But we've got a player in from Celtic, and we've got another striker in as well, which is really what we needed. I mean, we probably could do with another defender, but beggars can't be choosers, can we? So I'd say the future's looking relatively bright at the moment for Coventry fans. I say relatively bright in that we don't actually play in Coventry.
But Leicester City under-21s are currently playing at the Rico, so you have got a team to watch, Coventry fans. And I realised that the death glare I'm getting from my co-presenter means I should rapidly apologise for that statement.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Manchester City fans turning up to watch United kids play? That said, I used to watch Leicester reserve games quite often, mainly because I could get the tickets free rather than anything else.
As long as you didn't directly put any money in the coffers.
No.
I guess you could justify that as a Coventry fan.
I once saw a pre-season friendly with Bruno and Gotti as well, so it all adds to the rich tapestry.
And your footballing tapestry is rich and varied.
It certainly is.
There are those who have had somewhat of a rich and varied career, some might say, and they're making their comeback. We've got Mark Marshall we've just spoke about, but of course a more prolific pairing is that of Richard Keys and Andy Gray. But they seem to have they could have derailed their comeback before it's even begun.
Yeah, I mean, I know that everyone is aware of the Keys and Gray scandal of 2010.
Oh, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
I know, it was though. It was. I mean, Andy Gray especially was a fixture on Sky for more than a decade, and then this all came out. And the footage that has been released in this recent scandal, it's not recent footage. We're talking about the footage that's been released by the Football Ramble, my favourite podcast, apart from Mid-Table Crosses, of course. It's not recent footage. I think someone's been holding on to this for a while until they tried to make their comeback as a sucker punch to them. And I think they can't recover from this, surely. And it makes me think as well, what else is there? I'm sure there's a few grubby videos some football journalists can get their hands on if needs be.
It's hopefully the last nail in the coffin, because you can't bring that kind of sexist attitude into modern football. It just doesn't belong.
No, it does. It's not 1973.
As much as some people would like it to remain 1973, we just live in the real world, the modern world, and
yeah, that goes for Sam Tyler.
And some people are just going to have to accept the fact that women are now part of the modern footballing experience.
Yeah, certainly so.
And I
And
think the game's better for it, personally.
yeah, and also well done to the Football Ramble for not cashing in on the video. They could have made at least £1,000 on it and given it to the papers who would have used it for their own ends. Instead, they've put £1,000 of their own money towards a women's charity. So that's nice to see. Good blokes for Football Ramble. Good blokes.
Good gentlemanly conduct, which we applaud.
We do, literally.
That sounded more impressive in our heads, guys.
Not
Of course, we go from such a noble act as one we've just mentioned by the Football Ramble to the sharing of knowledge, which in itself is a noble and virtuous pursuit. And it's, of course, time for our Book of the Month section.
I hope you all enjoyed last month's book, Up Pompeii. Since then, I hope you've kept up on the news that Paul Watson is continuing his journey in Mongolia. His trials are ongoing, and hopefully he'll have a team up and running very, very soon. But Simon, like the sunset and the sunrise, everything must change.
Of course, and I've gone for a less of a dreamy-eyed approach to the beautiful game. I've gone more down the route of cold hard facts. My book of the month, of course, is The Numbers Game: Why Everything You Know About Football Is Wrong. And for those who have read Moneyball or Soccernomics, and I appreciate not many of you or all of you have, it's a further insight into how statistical analysis is changing the way we think about the beautiful game. And as a personal bit of a stat geek myself, I found it enthralling to see the way that teams now sign players and the little unseen mechanisms within football that we don't truly appreciate until we think about them. It's quite a beautiful meshing. It shows that football is quite a beautiful meshing of maths, science, and artistry. And I think that's quite a beautiful summation of the game itself.
Very good, Simon. Very good.
Thank you. And I implore you all to go to Amazon, Waterstones. I believe there's several types of ebook available now, because I'm down with the kids. And pick yourself up a copy and read it.
Who's it by, Simon?
It's by Chris Anderson and David Sally. And is recommended by Billy Bean, of course, the subject of the film and the book Moneyball. So it's got a fine pedigree.
I would like to read anything recommended by a person played by Brad Pitt in a film. More.
And on the sound of Tom's Mancrus bubbling to the surface, this has been Mid-Table Crisis. I've been Simon Cross.
This is Tom Patrick signing off. Have a lovely week.